Hello! Thank you for being in a new video. This time I have with me the ZTE Axon 50 Lite. Let's give it a full review. Let's get started. This device could probably be classified as the surprise of the year. We are talking about an entry-level device, but that is giving us a much higher performance and feel. Undoubtedly, if you are looking for a good cell phone but you are not willing to spend too much money, it could be a very good alternative, but let's go little by little getting to know it. For now, let me tell you the price, which is 2,999 pesos at Telcel. On the screen, you see the reference price in dollars in case you are from another country. But remember that the prices here are not the same as there. Although it is curious because the official price in its announcement of arrival in Mexico was much higher, more than 4,000 pesos, which was considered too high a price, but it seems that they made an adjustment and currently the official price listed in Telcel is the one I mentioned a moment ago, being one of the most interesting alternatives in this price range, where very few devices could be considered to be recommended. So join me to know this device point by point. The design of the equipment seems to me very good for the price range in which it is located. We have a good use of the front, although it is true that the lower bezel could be a little bigger than what we are used to, but in this price range I think it is what we could expect. Fortunately, both on the sides and on the top, we have much thinner bezels and a design with a cutout in the form of notch for the top of the front camera. It honestly strikes me as a design that delivers on what one might expect in this price range. We don't have any Gorilla Glass protection or anything like that here, but it's not something we could demand from it for its price. On the right side we have the power button, which is also a fingerprint reader, and the volume buttons. The top frame is completely clean. And on the left side we have the slot to insert the nano SIM card and also a micro SD. In some regions, the second SIM card tray may be unlocked, but in Mexico, only this version is sold. On the bottom, we have a headphone jack, a microphone, USB-C port, and finally, the main speaker. This device is 8.4 millimeters thick and weighs 207 grams, so it does not feel too heavy or too thick. The back cover design has a completely solid color and is made of plastic, offering a material that one might expect in a budget device. However, the design of the camera module will probably appeal to some people, although it is only the design as it doesn't really have very advanced cameras, but it does look nice as that area of the camera module has an acrylic that reflects color differently. In this case, I have the purple edition, but it is also available in black and green. Of course, being an inexpensive device, it does not offer us any level of resistance against water or anything similar. The screen is 6.6 inches and has a 20:9 ratio. Its resolution is Full HD+, and from there it starts to stand out, due to the fact that in the price range there are several devices that have HD-only screens. The technology is IPS, although it is a simple technology, so the best experience you will have viewing the content from the front. But if you view the content from the side, the brightness and color accuracy will be greatly reduced. Although that is something very natural to find in devices of this price. Honestly, that we could not get more demanding to ask for a higher quality screen. I think that for personal use it is fine because it shows good colors and good contrast in general as long as you see the content from the front. The screen has a simple brightness level, so outdoors under sunlight can be a bit complicated to view the content, but fortunately the lower brightness is comfortable to use this device well at night. And is that in economic devices sometimes the low brightness is not low enough, but in this case it seems to me that it is. It also integrates good modes for visual protection such as reading mode, or we also have night mode and dark mode. And we also have a small color calibrator in case you want slightly warmer or cooler tones depending on your own taste. One point where it could be surpassed by some competitors is the refresh rate of the screen, which remains at the standard 60 Hz, but the truth is that I do not consider it necessary in this price range a screen of more than 60 Hz, as we would give more workload to the processor, and in general with 60 Hz movements feel good in this price range, considering that, for example, the iPhone 15 has a screen of 60 Hz as well. Now you are about to listen to a sound recording with the only microphone that this device has present.
Esta es una prueba de audio grabado con el ZTE Axon 50 Lite. Ten cuidado con tapar el micrófono porque si no puedes llegar a tener audio distorsionado.
As you can notice, the audio recording was very simple since it only has one microphone, causing that if you accidentally cover it, a lot of noise will be generated and you will not be able to hear all the audio. So we do not have a stereo recording system, and that is probably one of its weaknesses since other manufacturers do offer two microphones at this price. Similarly, it only has one speaker that emits a very loud sound but not of a very high quality, although it is in accordance with what we could expect in the price range. Fortunately, the volume is loud enough for it to get to stand out. But in terms of quality, we can't highlight anything. Let's listen to a small test, but remember that it's not the same to listen to it live. Unlike other ZTE models, it doesn't integrate any kind of sound enhancement through DTS audio or Dolby Atmos options. But the good news is that it does integrate headphone jack. And in case you want to connect Bluetooth headphones, it supports basic SBC and AAC codecs. The front camera is 8 megapixels with FDO's 0-point aperture placed in this notch-shaped cutout. We anticipate it will deliver basic results. It does not seem to have a very high speed in the capture, but that is because it does not show any special animation when taking the picture. You only see how the preview of the last picture taken is updated. So it does have a fast capture, but it doesn't look fast. It also has a beauty mode with different options such as smoothing the skin, making the skin smoother, brightening the face, changing the tone, enlarging the size of the eyes, and reducing the cheeks. You can even change the size and color of the lips. And in the settings, you can enable easy capture mode by showing the palm that helps you when the shutter is too far away from your finger. For this price level, the selfies are considerably detailed. We could not get too demanding and still we get to be quite surprised. Of course, it is not free of some areas where you can see that the lens is not of high quality, but for this price they come out very well. It has good amplitude, although obviously being a little further away from the camera you will lose more detail of your face, but you can take some group selfies even though it does not have a special mode for this. Indoors, you notice that the camera can suffer a bit more to capture darker areas and the level of detail is also diminished, but I like that it still maintains a sufficiently saturated color. In backlight, the preview doesn't look optimized, and after taking the picture it doesn't look very spectacular either, even though it does have automatic HDR, but it's not able to illuminate the face well enough. At night, the colors get a bit paler and also the level of detail is low, but it is what one would expect in a device of this price. In indirect light, it is going to be even more difficult to get a good picture because of the color and detail. The screen can be turned on to its maximum brightness to try to function as a flash, although the camera still captures little detail and poor color saturation. This would be the backlit result with the automatic HDR, but it seems that this option does not work very well since this is the result if I turn on the HDR manually and therefore it improves a lot. The truth is that it is an extremely complicated photograph that simply seeing this result in this price range is surprising, although the result itself is not so much. This front camera also has the ability to take portraits, although they do not come out natural if you have some objects next to you because it will blur them anyway, but the bokeh effect of the background looks considerably good. Although possibly at night this bokeh effect will look nicer because it will blur the lights in a very nice way. On the back, we have the main camera of 50 megapixels with f1.8 aperture and autofocus. We also have two additional cameras, which I call marketing cameras because they are only macro and depth, which I don't consider to be very useful. Both are 2 megapixels with f2.4 aperture and fixed focus. Again, we will see a considerably good capture speed, so capturing the exact moment is quite simple, although it doesn't show a good animation, so you realize that if I take the picture and if we hold down the shutter, we also start a burst of up to 30 pictures, again making it easy to capture the exact moment. If we press on screen, we can adjust the focus and also the exposure, but it also has an expert mode in which we can modify more parameters such as exposure compensation, shutter speed, focus, ISO, white balance, and other settings such as contrast and saturation. The only thing it doesn't allow us to do is to take raw photos, but that would be too advanced a feature for a device of this price. It also doesn't offer a document scanner mode, so for that you'll have to download some other app. And QR codes are not automatically recognized in the main interface, but it does have a special mode for scanning these codes, or you could also get to use Google Lens to do this same action. Moving pictures are very tricky for them, especially if you need to apply HDR. Notice how I have 4 arms in this picture, something incredible. And even though the resolution of the camera is 50 megapixels, in reality, you're definitely not going to be able to get such detailed photos even in this high-resolution photography mode, as you get to see little detail. And you even start to notice areas where the focus is very bad. Definitely that 50 megapixel photography is not something this device will be able to boast about. In fact, outdoors you have to notice that the colors are a bit pale. We have little contrast, very little accuracy in these colors, so it's a plain picture according to what one might expect in this price range. However, boasting that it has a 50 megapixel camera, one would expect a superior result. Indoors, when there is not so much illumination, I find that it manages to saturate colors much better. In this case, it was a rather dark scene, it must be said, although it is not free of noise, but it is a much better result than we were seeing outdoors. Considering its price, at night it has a good quality. It is not a photograph with so much illumination, but it should be noted that it also does not have an excessive presence of noise, although it does notice a nulling, but the colors still have enough saturation. It has a night mode, but it doesn't make that much of a difference compared to the automatic mode photography, so it's still a good photograph for the price point at which it is distributed. In areas where there is a slightly more intense light source, you're going to get a better result in terms of color and level of detail. The zoom again is not going to be something the device can boast about, but no device at this price point is going to have a very impressive zoom to speak of. Here you're looking at digital zoom photography, a 5x zoom, and finally a 10x digital zoom photograph. It looks very artificial, but I insist it's what you'd expect in this price range. This device does not have an ultra-wide camera, however it does have a panoramic mode, although the color rendition changes radically. However, with some editor, you could correct the color a bit and still take advantage of this good amplitude. It should be noted that it is a good panoramic mode because the merger between one photograph and another is not too noticeable, giving a very homogeneous result. The main camera is able to adjust its focus for close objects, so you can take advantage of it for this macro photography of good quality with good colors and good level of detail. This is the result offered by the dedicated macro camera that comes with this device, which from my point of view is useless because it is not able to offer a better result than the main camera. Notice how we have much more noise and a very inaccurate color rendition, in addition to a very unpleasant blur. From my point of view, if you apply digital zoom 2x with the main camera, you get a much higher quality photograph. And finally, for portraits, it has another dedicated camera, but again, it is confirmed that it does not make good use of it. Notice how there are areas that should not be out of focus and end up being out of focus, and other areas that should be out of focus but are not. So, the result is too inaccurate. Possibly in some easier environment you might get a better picture, but it's not going to be a device that takes good portraits. Video recording goes up to Full HD at 30 frames per second, which is what we could ask from a device in this price range. There are even others in this price range that only record in HD. When recording video, we will have a slider for zoom, we also have a button to capture, and we can pause and resume our recording. However, what we cannot do is turn on the flashlight or rotate the front camera without the need to have stopped our video recording before. Video recording is simple. In fact, the focus struggles too much even in a normal environment, and you will also notice that the level of detail may seem less than Full HD, besides noticing a little drastic changes in the white balance, although all this goes according to the price we could not demand more. Indoors, the movements feel exaggeratedly slow due to the shutter speed that implements in order to collect as much light as possible. Also, again, it is appreciated as the focus battle too much. In backlight, it makes a sacrifice of the illuminated areas in order to illuminate your face well, although in the settings you can select whether or not you want it to detect faces. In any case, I wouldn't highly recommend shooting in these kinds of lighting conditions because it's a very difficult condition that no device at this price point is going to cope with. Well, at night, if there is not much movement, I think the result is positive because it manages to reduce noise significantly, but if you take a shot with much more movement, you will notice very slow movements due to the shutter speed and you will notice much more noise, so for static scenes it will work. But the point of a video is that there is movement, so I do not think the result is good, but again, it is what you would expect in a device of this price. The equipment does not have either digital or optical stabilization, so even when walking you will notice a lot of movement, not to mention when running where the movement will be unbearable. And this same video helps us to see how the white balance changes drastically. Curiously, the zoom is a positive point because it does not look like a stretched image, but the horizontal and vertical adjustments are very noticeable, giving a jelly-like effect. In addition, the fact of not having stabilization ends up making the shot look very bad. Therefore, despite having a relatively good level of detail, the experience is not really good. The focus we already saw previously that it can get very confused even in simple scenes. And with respect to objects, you will also notice that the focus does not react quickly even in aggressive movements. It's not going to react fast on subtle movements either, so the flat video recording is not good. It has a fast camera mode, but it doesn't have stabilization, so it feels like a pretty disastrous experience, plus it goes out of focus. It does not have slow motion, and in the front camera we are going to find a very similar experience. It does record in full HD, but we don't have stabilization. The color is considerably good, but it will always give priority to illuminate the face and does not have a good behavior against backlight. Therefore, you could end up burning too much the most illuminated areas you have in that scenario. Indoors, as with the rear camera, you see a little bit slower movement, although fortunately there is still not so much noise present. This device comes with Android 13 and running on it is the iOS 13 software, ZTE's customization layer that adds a few new features. In general, what changes with respect to pure Android is the aesthetics, especially the quick settings panel, which comes very nice. But it is not a customization layer that adds too many options, therefore it maintains a fairly stable and agile performance. It doesn't offer us an update policy, but that's not a feature we could ask from a device of this price. Simply what we will notice is that it comes with a lot of bloatware from the phone company here in Mexico, including applications such as Claro Drive, Claro Games, Claro Music, Claro Pay, Claro Shop, Claro Video, and many others. It has a very good variety of gestures to use the device in a smarter way. Among them, the one I like to highlight the most is the ability to turn on the flashlight when we are on the lock screen simply by shaking the device. We can also use the power button to wake up the Google Assistant and ask it any query we want. But basically, those are all the additional functions it has, and in fact it has absences, as for example the split screen mode is not present. It also doesn't have one-handed mode, which we usually see in most devices today, and some other features. So, the software comes very simple, but fortunately it is very stable. This device integrates side fingerprint reader, which is a bit thin, so you might have a few complications to recognize your fingerprint, but it's just a matter of getting used to touch this sensor correctly. In this price range, several devices sacrifice the fingerprint reader by providing only facial recognition, but this ZTE model comes well complemented. It allows you to register up to 5 different fingerprints and even allows you to map one of your fingerprints so that when you unlock your device with it, a specific application opens directly. In addition to facial recognition, but it is only in 2 dimensions, so I do not recommend it. The device itself explains here that people similar to you could unlock your device. If you wanted to stay unlocked in secure environments, you could use Smart Lock to add your home location or Bluetooth devices that while connected will keep the device from locking. ZTE also adds the application called My Vault, through which you can protect various things with your fingerprint. Then you can add applications, images, videos, files, and passwords so you have a private and secure space. This device includes Google's password manager, but note that it automatically fills in the fields without first verifying that it is indeed you who is trying to fill in these forms. That is why it is advisable to access the Google settings, then click the autocomplete part, autocomplete again, and finally in the preferences we will enable the option to request the fingerprint before filling out the forms. So it is a very useful tool, but it could be improved with an update to make it more secure. The only thing it would lack would be a child mode, and in case you happen to lose your device, you depend on Google to try to find it. This feature is already turned on at the factory, so you can try to locate it on a map, but it is not as robust an implementation as other brands. The battery has a capacity of 5,000 milliamps. A very common capacity in this same price range, however, one should not conclude things simply with the capacity figure. In this case, I did my extreme drain test that I always run, having YouTube in the foreground and also having a battery drainer running in the background. The battery consumption seemed a little bit high to me as I managed to drain it 50% in 2.25 hours or so, although it's probably due to not very proper management in the consumption of apps running in the background. So in this sense, it is not very advanced, but it does allow you to manually set which applications you want to be running in the background and which applications are not. But it also confirms that the processor is not that efficient, so the battery is not a strong point of this device, but fortunately the charging is. It also confirms that the processor is not very efficient, let's say because of its construction process that is not very modern, but fortunately you get to have a standard power saving mode that can help you in everyday life, or you also have an ultra saving mode that in an emergency could restrict you several things. Simply the first time you turn it on, you have to give it permissions. This is quite strange, but well, when you turn it on, you are going to notice that the device restricts many things so that it is not consuming so much energy, and anyway, it lets you add 4 essential applications for you, so it can become a very useful mode in emergencies. One thing I really liked related to the battery is the charge. It is 22.5 watts and in 15 minutes it recovered 18% of the energy. Also in 30 minutes it recovered 34% and the full charge was completed in 1 hour and 43 minutes. Which is not a spectacular figure, but in the price range it is considered one of the fastest charges. Although through software we will not find any charging lock mode or smart charging, then that could be improved in future generations. In connectivity, it also has what one would expect, Wi-Fi networks 5 and 4G only in the mobile data connection, although it does not allow us to choose which applications if we want to consume our mobile data and which applications do not. It only has a data saving mode, but it doesn't go any further. The Bluetooth version included is the 5.2 and does not include NFC, so we cannot make mobile payments with it, but it was not something we could demand in this price range. The advantage is that it does allow us to project our screen wirelessly, not only to Chromecast but also to other screens as long as you enable the option that is in the hidden menu. It also has Android Auto to project cell phone content to your vehicle's screen and doesn't have many advanced sensors, but the ones it does have work well, accelerometer, light sensor, and physical proximity sensor that activates quite easily. The most important absence here would be the gyroscope and also the geomagnetic field that might be necessary for some specific applications. ZTE does not have a developed ecosystem that allows you to interconnect several devices and have them all interact with each other in a very friendly way. Fortunately, it integrates Android, and that means it has an ecosystem open to other brands to use technologies like Nearby Share to share files wirelessly even with Windows computers if you install that feature, or also technologies like Google Fast Pair so that headphones of other brands that integrate this technology can be easily discovered by this device to link. However, do not expect something very advanced because ZTE does not offer tablets, headphones, watches, or anything like that. So everything will be 100% up to Google, even the cloud storage offered through Google Drive and the Internet of Things device control included with Google Home. So the experience is pretty short, but in this price range we couldn't get too picky either. Let's go to an application opening test that this device includes the Unisoc T606 processor. A simple processor, but it has a good GPU. It seems to me a good choice because they are processors that allow you to adjust the price of the device. Because if at this same price you would choose a MediaTek or Snapdragon processor, you would choose a processor that is too old. In addition, it comes bundled with 4 GB of RAM, and they even go so far as to offer up to 10 GB of RAM dynamically with internal storage. It took approximately 5.5 seconds to open each application, and that's a pretty extensive time, so we are not in front of a very fast processor to say the least, but I insist that in this price range we could not get so demanding as to ask for a more powerful processor either. What we will also notice is that the RAM management is not so advanced. In this case, I opened 12 applications and practically all of them are restarting when trying to return to them. Therefore, it is not a device that I recommend if you like to keep many applications open and be switching between them, because you will notice that it can become very slow. Even when navigating between applications, you will notice that the scroll at times will become very slow, especially if you have many things open. Therefore, the recommended thing to do on this device is to keep few applications open to have a slightly smoother and more comfortable experience. However, again, I say that for this price, we could not get so demanding, and I think this team maintains a high enough performance to accept it at this price. But the most remarkable thing about this processor is not its CPU, but its GPU. In this case, we are going to do the test of exporting several videos together that in total last 1 minute. All the videos were recorded in full HD with this device, so let's do the test to know more or less how long it takes to finish exporting all these clips together. And it's done. It took 54 seconds, so that's less than a minute, and that's already positive in this price range, giving you a, let's say, acceptable video editing. It probably wasn't that fast due to storage speed limitations, as capacity is a very strong point. Look at how little I have used, and I already have some photos, videos, and games installed, but that in this price range they offer you 256 gigabytes of storage is spectacular. Obviously, to be able to offer you all this capacity, they had to sacrifice the speed of the storage. So it's not a storage where you can read and write very fast, and that's going to cause a certain level of slowness, but in exchange they give you a lot of space so you can store all kinds of pictures, videos, applications, and more. It's going to be very difficult for you to fill up this device, and the capacity stands out because normally 256 gigabytes we're only seeing in the high-end or a few mid-range devices, but it's very uncommon to see it in the low-end. Finally, as for games, we do not have any specific application that gives us more tools or a special suite. Call of Duty by default loads in low quality at a medium rate. However, it does allow us to upload at medium quality even at a high rate, although it does not support various graphical effects. Previously, Unisoc processors integrated a very bad GPU, PowerVR, but now they integrate the Mali G57MP2 GPU, which I find can smoothly resolve various content, although not with such advanced graphical effects, but you can get to play well. However, what you cannot do well is to record the screen and play, because if you record the screen can be noticed much slower movement, which is the case you are seeing on the screen. However, without recording the screen, you will notice about 30 frames per second stable, although in this case we could not specifically monitor its behavior. But you should consider that for this price it will give you a very good playability, although it will not give you the ability to record gameplays because recording the screen considerably decreases its performance. In Legends, we changed the automatic setting to set it to medium quality. We even went up to 60 frames per second to give it a tough test. And boy was it surprising, because without recording the screen we noticed that the performance was very high, close to 60 frames per second to our surprise. It is not free of frame loss and this kind of thing, but honestly for this price it offers us a considerably good gaming experience. Obviously recording the screen the performance is lower, but it doesn't seem to go with as much work as it did in Call of Duty. So this game, even recording the screen, is close to 30 frames per second. In the SpongeBob game, by default, it's at a low resolution. We left it there. It's also at medium quality and we left it there. We just turned off the smoothing because it was a very difficult task for this device. With these settings, again, we managed to notice a fairly high performance as long as you don't burn the screen. Again, we could say that it was close to 60 frames per second, although by recording the screen, the performance decreases dramatically. I insist that it is a device that will give you a good gaming experience, especially because you can install heavy games despite being a low-end device. Obviously, the right thing to do is to play in low graphics quality without too many details to maintain good stability. Finally, in Asphalt 9, the 60 frames per second option is not available and we played it with the best quality setting. In none of the 4 games we tested, the temperature exceeded 40 degrees Celsius, confirming that the device maintains good gaming performance. Although I insist it will not give you detailed graphics or anything like that, so do not think it is a gaming machine, but if you get to play content on this device despite being low-end, it can give you good fluidity without too spectacular graphics. And with this, we have come to the end of this video review of the ZTE Axon 50 Lite. I hope you liked it. If you did, you know you can tell us, and we'll see you next time.